you are passionate about the smaller church.
Yes.
Why?
Yes. I think in part because the majority of churches in the UK would be, certainly by US standards, would be considered smaller church, right? You're here in a church which is, for us, medium sized, but if you put this in the US context, that's a
Right.
pretty small church,
Right.
right?
And to give you guys context, the church that we're in right now, this church averages about 80, you said,
80 on a Sunday morning.
on a Sunday morning. So 80,
You can get less.
to give you kind of an idea, and mind you, the example I'm going to give you is still still, I think, an anomaly. But I'm part of a church in Miami, which you guys know, Grace Church Miami, which is a 6-year-old church plant. And we average about 350 to 400 on a Sunday morning. And so it's like numerically 4 times the size of this church.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. For the standards in the US, you would look at this and say it's a small church. And sometimes I think wrongfully, you can write it off and be like, oh, somebody has to be wrong there.
Yeah.
Because they had less than 100 people. But I mean, I would argue you just as much, if not more, would try to argue and convince the person that is wrong and change how they're thinking about the church. So why is that important?
Why? Well, I think the first thing to always bear in mind is that a small church doesn't necessarily mean it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
I remember speaking to somebody about my church, somebody from America, and they said, "Oh, how many do you get on a Sunday?" And I said, "Well, about 70, 80, 60 if it's a holiday, summer holidays or whatever, and people are away." And they were like, "Oh, that must be a pretty new church." I was like, "No, it's been there since the 50s. Oh, was there a split? No, there was no split.
Right.
And I think it's easy to assume that maybe the church isn't doing anything.
Right.
Don't think that. Some of the most faithful men have committed themselves to small churches, and small churches can play a big role. The danger of being in a big church, of course, is it's very easy to hide. Very easy to kind of sit out, hide yourself in a corner and not get involved. In a small church, you have to serve because the church doesn't survive without it.
Yeah.
And I say that's one of the things that I always encourage people is when you're looking for a church, don't just go to where your friends are necessarily. That is an important consideration, don't get me wrong, but look for somewhere where you can plug yourself in and serve rather than just sit and be served.